Breonna Taylor's family demanding to see the transcripts from the grand jury proceedings on Breonna's death. Her aunt reading a powerful statement from Breonna's mother.
I was reassured Wednesday of why I have no faith in the legal system, in the police, in the law that are not made to protect us black and brown people. But when I speak on it, I'm considered an angry black woman. But know this, I am an angry black woman. I am not angry for the reasons that you would like me to be.
That's right.
I'm sorry. But angry because our black women keep dying at the hands of police officers.
Black men.
And black men.
NBC News correspondent Cal Perry joining me now from Louisville, Kentucky. Cal, Taylor's mother also wrote that she never had faith in Attorney General Daniel Cameron. What does the Taylor family want from him now?
They want to see those transcripts. They want to see exactly what the grand jury discussed, what evidence was presented to the grand jury, and how they came to that conclusion that only one officer should be held partly responsible for firing into an adjacent apartment. None of those officers held responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor. They want to know what the Attorney General presented as evidence. We heard the entire process called a quote-unquote shame by Benjamin Crump, who gave some of that press conference today. And really, it sort of goes to the distrust, again, between this community and the police force. The FBI is already investigating the warrant, how officers actually arrived at Breonna Taylor's door. It is those kind of questions that the family still wants answered, Allison.
Cal, the Attorney General said the proceedings are secret. Is there anything that could make him or compel him to make those documents public?
Look, it may be politics somewhere down the line. Right now, there's any number of federal investigations that he says prevents him from making it public. That's his line. But again, you know, just to reinforce, the calls on the Attorney General, and it is a Republican Attorney General, to sort of make this process more transparent, really haven't happened. And it's something that also the police force here is dealing with. It cuts to the core of, for example, the body camera issue. The transparency issue is sort of paramount here when you listen to the family and you listen to protesters.
Cal, let's talk about the protests there in Louisville. We are expecting more of them tonight. You have been there all week long. How are city leaders handling this situation? How are they getting ready for this evening and the weekend ahead?
Well, the curfew will stay in place from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., extended through the weekend. The National Guard is still on call. They're sort of back behind the scenes, not making their presence known, which hopefully will ratchet down tensions. I think you can expect more protests tonight. For city leaders, again, it's this fine line in trying to create some kind of communication between the community and the police, trying to figure out how to have that civilian oversight and improve the situation. We had a chance to catch up with the Metro City president a little bit earlier. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I think that it depends on what your vision of justice is, right? I think justice is not only what happened on March the 13th. I think Breonna Taylor's name carries justice much further than that. You know, the Breonna Taylor law, the changes that are going to take place because of them. We would have never known that Breonna Taylor existed had it not been for the protesters.
It is those legislative changes that protesters still hope to achieve, some of which those police reforms we saw in that lawsuit that was settled between the city and Breonna Taylor's family. The hope is there will be more of those reforms, Allison.
All right, Cal Perry, hoping for that and hoping that this weekend remains peaceful and folks there stay safe. You as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Allison.
NBC News correspondent and Pulitzer Prize winner Tremaine Lee joins me now. He's also the host of the podcast Into America. Tremaine, for many people, the Breonna Taylor grand jury decision says black lives do not matter. So where does this movement go from here?
Allison, thank you so much for having me. As we know, this case of Breonna Taylor has been gut-wrenching and emotional for many. But these kinds of setbacks to the movement and those who are pushing for justice for Breonna and so many other black folks are also fueled by these kinds of losses, because for them, it shows that the system is broken, and it kind of redoubles their efforts to make sure they do everything they can to make sure justice is achieved, at least for the next one or the next one. And unfortunately, there likely will be a next one.
Tremaine, in your podcast this week, you spoke with a Louisville activist who helped pass Breonna's law banning no-knock warrants in the city. How did she react to the grand jury's decision this week?
Yeah, you know, I spoke to Hannah Drake, and you could hear the emotion in her voice, and she was still kind of reeling from the gut punch of the decision not to charge any of the officers in Breonna Taylor's death. And sometimes I think we forget that these are actual real people who make up these movements, real people who are out there in the streets and giving their all. And talking to Hannah Drake, her daughter's name is Breonna, and she says, not only do I see my daughter in Breonna, but I see myself and so many other black women whose names haven't been elevated. But let's hear from Hannah Drake herself what she had to say. Let's take a listen.
I'm 44 years old, and at what point will I get a chance to just breathe in this city? Will I get a chance to just be? Where I get a chance to be at my house and it's okay? At what point, when is that going to come for me? Another 40 years? I may not have another 40 years.
At what point can she just breathe? You know, hearing her voice kind of drenched in the emotion of a black woman in America, and a black mother especially, it sends really chills down your spine. But she says, when? Another 40 years? And that's what so many activists are grappling with right now. When will we achieve justice? And you hear that from Hannah Drake.
Let's talk about that a little more, Tremaine, a little bit more, too, about Breonna Taylor's legacy and what possibly might come from her death and this case. Is there hope for people who see this week, who see this grand jury decision as a dead end here, as a devastating moment for not just the Black Lives Matter movement, but Black lives?
You know, that idea of hope can sometimes be elusive, and it can also be demoralizing, right? As much as the idea of better days can be buoyant for some people, it also is a reminder that there are roadblocks and walls around every corner. But when you think about Breonna Taylor's death, the idea of say her name, that's while black men who are killed by police in the state often get much more attention than women, we are now saying Breonna Taylor's name. You think about Breonna's Law in Louisville, the idea of ending these no-knock warrants, which she came to symbolize, right? Her death came after police initially were issued a no-knock warrant. They say they knocked and announced themselves, but others say they didn't. And so I think the lasting legacy here is that while there is great pain in the loss, the continued loss, there actually can be structural and structural change as well as policy change in these police departments and the way black folks especially are policed. But again, sadly, we've come to expect police to kill black people, and we come to expect that these decisions by grand juries and prosecutors don't often favor the families and the legacies of those victims. But if not for people like Hannah Drake, who went out in the streets and pushed and continued to elevate the names of people like Breonna Taylor, we wouldn't know their names. So for many, if there is any hope at all, it's that there are legions of people, a movement building around equity for black life, and they're continuing to push. Allison.
Tremaine, a tough week in the fight to end racial injustice. Thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about it. Have a good weekend.
Of course. Thank you, Allison.
NBC News can help you figure out how to vote in the 2020 presidential election. We have a new state-by-state guide called Plan Your Vote with information on voting rules, deadlines, and restrictions by state. Check it out at NBCnews.com/planyourvote.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.